What's going on? Welcome back to the channel. So today I'm going to talk to you about SoFi. I want to go over some of the current data points, break it down on what shorts did, and go over everything else you need to know. But first, make sure to hit that thumbs up. And with that, let's get right to it. So SoFi did go up 5.49%. So pretty kick-ass day. 22.52 the low, 23.73 the high, and rather low-ish volume. So 56 million shares being traded, 74 is the average. And that's been something that's been plaguing the broader market for the last several weeks. But SoFi has been somewhat struggling with a key resistance level, and today it just absolutely blew past that. Actually, in fact, during the pre-market it did that. What caused all of today's hype was because of CPI. So we did have the month over month coming in flat at 0.2, year over year came in at 2.7, consensus was 2.8. And so July's data, which was all of this, was going to be a hot one that people watched for, because Powell's been chirping quite a lot. We always hear it, need to monitor the data, need to follow the data, blah, blah, blah. This is the data that he was going to really be watching, because he is very fearful over Trump's tariffs and how that was going to cause inflation to go higher. With this being July's data, that does kind of represent Trump's tariffs being kind of fully enforced. So at the end of the day, this is very good, kind of does solidify that rate cut. And so we already did have pretty much leading into today the likelihood of a cut for the September 17th meeting being there. So right now there's a 94.4% likelihood of a 25 basis point cut, and then a following 25 basis point cut for October. So a 60.5% likelihood of that occurring. So this did go up, which is always good. In my opinion, I think that the market does truly want a 75 between the two meetings, so between September and October. So that would be massive for the broader market, growth stocks, SoFi, everyone and your dog. So I think there is definitely a lot more room on the table to really move higher. I'm going to go over the technicals and some key levels to really watch for near the end of the video. But today there wasn't all that much in news, so no SEC filings, no press releases. So it was just merely piggybacking off of the broader market. Aside from all of that though, shorts, they did increase a small amount, 18,000 shares, 9.29% of the free float is being shorted, works out to be 109.36 million shares overall being shorted. Cost to borrow minimum is back at being negative. So yesterday was just, I guess, a one-off, unfortunately, but cost to borrow minimum is negative 0.07. Nothing significant because that is a annual rate, not a daily rate. So still not that big of a deal. But when it comes down to SoFi, I wanted to kind of compare it vaguely to Robinhood. So I think we can all kind of agree throughout SoFi's last 6 months, many times it's been suppressed because of shorts. Robinhood did experience that largely in 2022 when their short interest was roughly around 12 to 13% for the most part. And of course, we all know what generally happened with Robinhood. It just exploded. Struggled a little bit with that $10, $15, and then $30 stages, but for the most part, we all know generally where it is now. And I think that there's going to be a very similar scenario play out with SoFi in the next 6 months, where it will bring shorts to similar to Robinhood stages, which is at 3.83% of the free float being shorted. So I think when it comes down to it, SoFi in the next 6 months will have around like a 4% short interest. Most likely in the next couple months, like 1 or 2, it'll be dropped down to between that 6 to 8. But nonetheless, that is going to really help SoFi push significantly higher as well, because a good about 60 million shares will be off the table, and that's going to again help the stock price even further. So yeah, I think exciting times are ahead, and even if we do have, let's say, a 75 basis point cut, for instance, over the next 2 meetings, that's going to only help SoFi and just the broader market. Moving on to options though, you did have 60 million in calls, 8.7 million in puts. 50% of all the options being done today were bullish in nature. So definitely good to see a certain level of optimism still. At the same time, the volumes start to pick up a little bit more, so that's good to see. From the bull standpoint, you see a consensus for it to be roughly around that, looks like 24 to 24.50, so definitely a lot more optimism there. Bears are anticipating for it to be sub $22.50 to $23, so definitely a lot more upside as per usual. So definitely good to see. These are all the transactions occurring on the secondary market above $100,000. So a couple big ones after hours, so 25.9, 1 million, a 1.5 right here as well. So a lot of big money, of course, getting into SoFi, a lot of big pockets of buying. So that's what really had a nice strong close. One thing to take note of though, actually speaking of like market closes, tomorrow we actually don't have that much in data points. So it is going to be more of a technical driven day. So that could really stand also to benefit SoFi. But nonetheless, these are some of the transactions that did occur on the dark pool. I'll just hit refresh just to see if there's a couple of new ones. So there was one just happening or occurring about 15 minutes ago, 5.3 million. And then through the day, there was a couple $4 million transactions. So nonetheless, even though SoFi did somewhat experience lower volume today, a lot of the volume did actually come from actual transactions. So institutions buying and selling versus algorithmic trading. So I would much rather this always play out. Algos is always hollow. So definitely good to see as far as this. With it closing at 23.65, it is trading right now between its R1 and the pivot. I'm looking at the 1-day chart on a side note. So very strong support and resistance points. I've received some comments like, oh, you mentioned this 22.60 and 22.26 and whatever else. Depending on how volatile the day is, I always bring up whether it be the 4-hour or the 1-day chart. I'm looking at the 1-day chart on a side note. So these are very strong support and resistance points. So a little bit of context, but 24.64 is going to be the next strong point to really watch for, and ultimately could be touched over the next 2 trading days. So on Friday, we do have Michigan consumer sentiment and also retail sales. Thursday, we do have PPI. A lot of good reasons for the market to continue to push higher and for this R1 to be touched. And if we hit this 24, easily it'll be that 26, 29, and then yeah, definitely all-time highs for SoFi. So let me know your thoughts on SoFi in the comments below. Today, there was no real articles coming out, no new analyst ratings or anything. So the last one did come out, I think it was 7 days ago. There's a couple of new ones. So yeah, most likely that's it for analyst ratings up until either we have some rate cuts or potentially some new information does come out. But aside from that, like I mentioned, tomorrow is more of a technical driven day. And actually what I'll do is just make this black just to make it a little bit easier on your eyes. But nonetheless, on the actual chart, it is above the ALMA. So it shows that it wants to continue to push higher. Stochastic RSI is considered oversold. And that's because of the recent volatility leading into pretty much yesterday for the most part. And it's already above all the key moving averages. So SoFi does want to really move higher, and yeah, this is some exciting times. So I think we're back out of the stages. We're finding new a set range. So we've pretty much gone from that $6 to $10 range to that roughly $13 to $17 range, and now we're more in the new price discovery. So most likely I do anticipate the new range to be somewhere between, in my opinion, like $23 to $25, $26. That's probably where it'll land before it does consolidate next. But what do I know in life? So let me know your thoughts on SoFi. All I'm doing is enjoying the ride. I know I've mentioned this in the past. If you do believe in SoFi and that it's going to continue to move higher, I would probably recommend not doing some covered calls unless you want to get rid of your shares and do whatever floats your boat. But research options, definitely recommend in doing that, because the more volatile SoFi does get, the more potential in premiums that you could receive. So if you wanted to buy more stock, maybe consider selling puts instead. That way it gets you a little bit extra premium. But again, do whatever floats your boat. I just recommend a lot of people to research options because it can be very, very profitable and very beneficial. Again, if you do believe SoFi is going to go higher, you can just buy straight calls. And those are a lot of the screenshots on social media saying, hey, I'm up 1,000% because I bought calls. So yeah, pretty fun stuff. Let me know your thoughts on SoFi. Don't forget to hit that thumbs up. One final thing, pop over to my Patreon. I give buy signals on stocks, options, crypto, many of which have been absolutely on point. Definitely worthwhile to pop over there and take a look. With all that said, appreciate all of you watching.